Are you following me? Are you following me, dude?
This week we have with us Katie from the Homesteading RD. Katie is a homesteader who is obsessed with all things related to real food, self sufficiency, and doing things the old fashioned way. The Homesteading RD is a place where she can help guide people in a lifestyle that prevents health issues from occurring in the first place. It's in this space that she can help people learn how to grow their own food, develop healthy soil, raise animals the old fashioned way, and live a toxin free, simple life. Something beautiful happens when you slow down and find purpose in the little things. All right, let's welcome to the show Katie from the Homesteading RD. Hey, Katie, thanks for joining.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So awesome to have you here with us. All right, so let's dig in real quick. The Homesteading RD. What's the RD stand for?
Yeah, the RD stands for registered dietitian. So that
Okay.
is kind of how I started my professional career. And then it's really kind of morphed more recently over the last couple of years to really digging into more of the homesteading side of things. So it's been a really fun journey.
Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Awesome. So let's take a step back real quick and dig into your gardening story. Where does that start for you? When did you first get your first gardening experience?
Great question. So I am very much a self-taught gardener, a self-taught homesteader. So I was not raised homesteading or really growing much food. I did like a couple flowers growing up, but that was about it. So my first true gardening experience growing food and vegetables was in 2008. So when my husband and I had our first house, and just a small little house in Kansas City, and it was a really just basic start. And I love to share this story because so many people feel can get overwhelmed with I need all these fancy raised beds and start all my plants from seed. And really all I did is I took a shovel and I turned over some sod and I just broke it up the best I could. I don't even think I added compost, and I put seeds directly in the soil, and it turned out great. Was it my best
Right.
garden ever? No, but
Right.
I still got a lot of produce out of it. I probably only spent a total of $25, to get that whole garden started. And I just bought a gardening book and learned a little bit
Just
every
just
year.
went right at it, huh?
Yep, yep. Just get started. It's
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
evolved since then. So,
Yeah, that's probably, I think that's pretty close. I might have started just a year or two after you when it came to actually growing a food garden. And I've always kind of been into growing like house plants. I've always had plants around my home and all of that sort of thing since I was very young. But it was probably about 2009, 2010, about that time when I was starting my first food garden with just a
mm,
simple cucumber on a balcony, you know.
it's a great place to start. I love
Right.
that.
Yep, yep. And so you got started there. Where did things kind of develop from there for you?
Yeah, so we spent a couple of years in that house, and I did end up planting a couple of fruit trees, and I had a grapevine growing up our fence. So I really tried to maximize as much as I could where we were at, but we quickly outgrew that house. And I'm from Minnesota originally, and thankfully my husband agreed to move back there with me. So we moved
Oh,
back and found a 5-acre homestead, which is what we're on now. And then at that point, that's when everything really blossomed. I was able to go with the bigger gardens and really start progressing into food preservation. And it's been really fun. And now trying to get as self sufficient as possible.
that's great. That's really awesome. I wish I had that kind of space to be able to do those kind of things, but it's really fun to see all of you out there who are doing that so I can keep dreaming and know what I'm doing when I get there, right?
Yeah, hopefully someday.
So, in this gardening experience for you, I'm sure there are certain things that you've been growing that you really like. What are some of your favorite plants to grow in your garden?
I would say that my favorite plants to grow are anything in that brassica family. So, like
Oh,
cabbage and broccoli and Brussels sprouts. for several reasons. A, I love to eat them. They're delicious
Yes.
and they're just loaded full of amazing nutrition. The other thing is they're very cold hardy. And in Minnesota, where I'm now at, and I'm kind of in the central area of the state, so I'm zone 4A, we
Yeah.
get a decent amount of cold weather and our gardening season is really short. So I love that
Right.
group because they not only tolerate the cold, they thrive in the cold. They taste
Yeah.
better that way. They can tolerate the frost. So those are definitely a slam dunk in my book.
Yes, brassicas. Brassicas are my challenge, though.
Are
For me in
they?
my area, yeah, yeah. But still, like I say all the time on the show, is I'm determined to get them right. But it's great for you in those areas that you're able to do that. So you say you're in the 4A zone, right?
4A. So
Yeah,
yeah,
things
it's
are still pretty cold and pretty frozen right now.
they were up until a couple of days ago. It's been a very
Okay.
unique spring where it was very delayed. We still had 2 feet on the snow on the ground of snow up until a few days ago. And then it turned to 80 degrees and it all
Oh,
melted
wow.
in a matter of like 3 days. But now we're back to like 50s during the day, 20s at night. So we've leveled
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
But the snow's gone now at least. So I can see my garden. It's tempting me. We'll get
yeah.
there. We still have about another month to go before we can plant.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's tempting to get started though when the weather starts to warm up like that and give you
Yeah.
those basically a little false spring, I guess is what we call it, right?
Definitely,
It's
definitely.
like, oh,
What
I want to get you see just get itching really bad. I want to get these plants out there. I want to get growing. But yeah, you gotta hold off a little bit when you're in those type of zones where things can
Yep,
really just freeze right back up on you.
absolutely. And being mindful of your soil temp as well. When that air temp
Mhm.
is 80, it's like, oh yeah, it's probably warm enough. But if you actually stick your finger in the soil, if you can, I think some of it's still pretty frozen solid. It's going to be too
Yeah.
cold to plant for sure.
Yes, definitely. So brassicas being some of your favorites that you do really well with and everything. I'm sure that there's got to be some plants that present some difficulties or some challenges.
Hmm.
What are some of those things that you try growing but challenge you each year?
Yeah, I would say I have a love-hate relationship with potatoes. I love growing them. I love eating them. I love harvesting them. It's like Christmas, digging them up. But my biggest challenge with those are the Colorado potato beetle. I get them
Mm.
quite heavily, even if, I'm doing crop rotations and doing my best. And I'm not a big fan of spraying my plants, even if it's an organic spray. So I'm a manual bug remover kind of gal. And whew, it gets to be quite a lot of work sometimes. I'm out there every day going through the rows, picking them off. And they're kind of nasty creatures too.
Uh,
They're not very
oh,
fun to manage, but it's what we do.
yeah. So the potatoes because of the pests there for sure. I
Hmm.
I love growing potatoes, but for me, I just actually, as I was mentioning at the beginning of the show, we were out working on my friend's garden plots. We got these big 20-foot by 40-foot plots in his front yard right now.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things we did plant for the first time for me was planting potatoes in the ground.
Mm.
I've always, for years now, have just for the fun of it, grown potatoes in containers. I've had good
Yeah,
years, I've had off years, but one thing I've never had is having to deal with any potato beetles or any
you're
pests or anything
lucky.
to mess with them. But
Yep.
potatoes are fun to grow. Like you said, it's like Christmas digging them up. I think
Hmm.
that's one of the things, especially with container potatoes, is how deceiving they can be in some way too,
Mm.
because I get these big, beautiful potato plants that grow up out of these containers and just get my hopes up. All of these just, like I said, beautiful plants. And you never know what you're going to get until you actually dig it up. It's not one of those
Hmm.
plants that you could just see what you're getting right off of the plant.
Yeah.
Those all the rewards are down below the soil, and you pull up some of these really cool plants and find that you only got a few little potatoes in there. It's kind of something. But I'm going to see what things are like when it comes to actually growing them in the ground, and hopefully those will work out really well.
Yeah, good luck. The other thing I had a problem with this year is we have a lot of pocket gophers, and one had made its
Oh,
tunnel all the way along one of my rows of potatoes and was just snacking its way all the way
oh no.
through. So those potatoes, they're tricky.
Oh,
So
Yeah, so even if your bugs aren't getting to them, you've got these gophers
Underground.
getting. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Maybe I need to
Uh,
move to containers.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, if you get a good sized container, I find that they actually work all right. I haven't really found any luck with smaller containers, but a good
Okay.
size one I've
Good
found
to
pretty
know.
good. But
Awesome.
I don't know. I think from what I've heard and all of that, that potatoes actually do better in the ground.
I
But
think they do
again,
probably.
if you don't have those pests trying to steal them away from you,
Right, exactly. There's always
yeah,
something.
there's always something, right? All right. So so you've been gardening and doing all this sort of stuff. What was kind of the next thing for you? I mean, you started did you start your Instagram, or was that something that kind of developed over some other things that you were learning?
Great question. So I've had my Instagram account, I don't know, maybe since 2016, and
Yeah.
I've posted little things about my homesteading, like things I'm up to, shots of the garden along the way. But I didn't actually start trying to make an effort at growing my Instagram account until about a year and a half ago. So fall of 2021, where
Nice.
I had finally left my hospital dietitian job
Yeah.
to make a transition into functional nutrition. So I was back to school, and ultimately I was just in my basement day after day learning online, and I really missed that education piece and connecting with people. And that's where the Homesteading RD really was born. And I had all this extra time at home now, so I could really ramp up the growing piece and the homesteading piece and food preservation. So I just started just sharing really out of loneliness, and people really latched onto it and were wanting to learn. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I'll just keep going. And then
Yeah.
I made a website, and that's been doing really well. And it's just been really fun to see it evolve and to see so many people excited about this. I've been
Yeah.
growing food, and I've been growing food for 15 years, homesteading for 10 years, and I always feel like I was kind of the odd duck. People would look at
Right.
me like, you enjoy doing that? Like, you'd rather just stay home and weed your garden than go out and do something.
Right.
And so it's really cool now to see so many people actually interested in it and valuing this way of life. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And as you can tell with your Instagram, you got a really great following and all of that. That's kind of something to see in a short period of time to be able to have
Yeah,
that type of growth and
I was
everything. So that's
not
really awesome.
expecting it. Very humbled by it, that's for sure.
Yes, that's really great. Yeah, I really like a lot of the stuff that you share on your Instagram for sure.
Thank you.
Um, so let's see. Let's talk about some of those things that you are sharing on your Instagram. Let's see, we talked about in your bio, that you're showing people how to grow their own food for one, as we've talked
Hmm.
about there, but also, raising animals the old
Hmm.
fashioned way, as you say on your
Hmm.
website. So, what kind of animals, what kind of things that we got featured on your homestead?
Great question. So I'm pretty basic as far as animals go. I don't have like the cows or the goats yet,
Right.
anyways. But so
Yet,
right
right?
now, so right now it's mostly chickens. So we have about a group of like 40 to 45 egg layers, and then we also do meat chickens. And so
Okay.
those guys are going to be arriving the end of May. And so those are my main animal outlets at this point, but I'm hoping that maybe in
Yeah.
future years it'll start expanding.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like I was saying, I always think about how awesome it would be to have kind of a big space like you have there and
Mhm.
everything. And one of those first things I would do is chickens. I'm obsessed with chickens,
Absolutely.
but I live in the city and I don't really get the opportunity where I live
Mm.
and, to be able to have the chickens that I want. But someday, eventually, I'm gonna get them because I would just to love to have them around, just even if they're just running around and all of that would be great, let alone the
Yeah.
fact that you get the eggs and the meat down the road
Yep.
too if you're growing those types of chickens as well too. So those are really great. Uh,
Yeah. And they're a really easy creature to get started with. They don't need much. You can still go on a weekend trip getaway, and they're pretty inexpensive. They're small, and they're just
Yeah.
fun to have around. I think that was my biggest surprise moment when I first got chickens. I just got them for the eggs, and then
Yeah.
after they're around a while, I was like, oh, these guys are actually, they're fun. They have great personalities, and
Yeah.
yeah, I just enjoy seeing them run around, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I follow a few people, through YouTube and who have chickens, and it's just really kind of fun to see their relationship with these little animals and all of that too. It's really great.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit. Again, homesteading RDs. You're a registered dietitian. So, kind of, how do you incorporate that into your Instagram and the things that you share as well?
Yeah, great question. So I guess I don't, my Instagram account has evolved a lot over the years. So when I first started it, it was very nutrition heavy, like half nutrition, half growing food and food preservation. It has shifted a little bit to, not quite as heavy nutrition, to mostly content, but I like to throw in a little nutrition flair. I'm a
Yeah,
big researcher and I love research studies. So especially if you go to any of my blog posts on my website, The Homesteading RD, I try to really provide really good evidence behind any claims that I'm making, or
yeah,
research behind something that I'm recommending. So you can always see that it's evidence based, and then
yeah.
plus the experience side. I feel like that really brings it together, kind of from both ends.
Yeah, and as you're saying though too in your bio as well, is to help guide people in a lifestyle that prevents health issues. And I'm sure that's just, diet's a big thing for people when it comes to health issues. So, you know,
Absolutely. And yeah, I think just looking at it from a very simplistic, totally upstream, like for example, where I used to work at the hospital was very downstream. So people already had chronic disease and all these issues. And so really being able to get upstream to help people prevent them in the first place by, eating good, high quality food, cooking from scratch. I think that's one of the
yeah,
best things that people can do. Time outside and getting fresh air and sunlight and activity, and getting good sleep. All of those
yeah,
things really make a huge impact in your quality of life and your health, so we can prevent those things from developing.
right.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, even though I may not be like coming out with really heavy nutrition info, it's in there, like it's rooted in that. You may not even know
Yeah.
you're doing these things, but you definitely are.
Yes, that's great. Yes, and that's one of the things I love, one of the things you mentioned there too that I love about gardening is that whole kind of like sense of mind, the kind of almost therapy that you get by being out in your garden, being outside, doing all that
Mhm.
sort of stuff. And so
Mhm.
just that in itself brings a big impact to your life for sure. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, do you have any sort of future plans or anything that you're looking to do or looking forward to either this season or coming up for things that you're doing with whether it's your Instagram or your homestead or anything?
We actually have some really big changes coming. So, after I left my job at the hospital in downtown and started working from home, and my husband also works from home, we realized, hey, we can live anywhere we want now. We don't have to stay, on this 5-acre homestead, like pretty close to the city. So, we're actually
Right.
actively looking for a new homestead. We're
Yeah.
looking for like 200 plus acres so we can
Oh, wow.
really go for it. So it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of big changes, and that's where I'm hoping to really get into like greenhouse growing. So that's definitely going to open up the doors for me here with our short growing season, maybe
Yes.
hopefully incorporating more animals. So that's
Yeah.
definitely the big news coming in, and
Yeah.
dreading a little bit having to make all my gardens all over again, starting from scratch and
Right.
moving all the chickens, but I think
It'll
it'll
be
be worth it
great.
in the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, especially with all that space and everything. Do you have any ideas of where you're looking at or where you'd like to go?
Yeah, so currently we're about like 45 minutes to an hour north of the Twin Cities area, and we're looking to go about one more hour north. So even a little bit colder than what we're currently used
Oh,
to.
oh, okay.
So deep into the woods, basically. It's mostly just hunting country up there.
Oh, right on. Well, that'll
which
be
we
fun though.
want to get into. So being able to hunt off your own property, that definitely opens the doors for being more self-sufficient as well. So we're looking forward to it.
Right on. That's really cool. That'd be great to, again, have some bigger, larger spaces and be able to expand on some of these really cool successes and things that you've already got going on and all of that. So, last question for you. Do you have any advice or tips or anything like that that you'd like to share with any newer or even seasoned gardeners?
Yeah, my favorite tip is don't be afraid to fail forward. That's my favorite phrase, failing forward, because it's so easy to um, be nervous about getting started with something, knowing that, oh, am I going to do it right? Am I going to make mistakes? Is it all going to fail? Just jump in there, get started. You probably are going to fail, at some aspect of it, maybe the whole thing, but you're going to learn a lot from that experience and you can do even better the next time. Just take really good notes, and every year is going to be different too. I fail at something every single year, like for example, that pocket gopher eating all my potatoes last year, was a
Right.
first for me. But we learn and tweak from there. The other tip of advice that I like to give is something that really helps me, because it can be really overwhelming in today's world. There's so much information out there that can also sometimes be paralyzing. You'll see all these different opinions and ways of
Mm-hmm.
doing things, or you can just get lost reading blog post after blog post and then just are
Yeah.
so tired by the end you don't want to do anything. So my tip
Yeah.
for success is find somebody that you trust and just read their one way of doing it, and then just do that and
Okay.
see how it goes. That is kind of my secret to success, because I'm a researcher and I get very lost to see reading all the different ways you can do it. And
Yeah.
I'm most efficient and just confident going into it. Just find one way and do that.
Yeah.
And finding someone who practices similar to you, or ideally is in your same growing location,
Yes.
is really, really
Yeah.
helpful. And then you can know that, yeah, what they're recommending is probably also going to work for me.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's a good piece of advice, as if you're definitely just getting started. Like you said, there's
Hmm.
just so much information out there, and
Hmm.
that, things can just kind of, mass up, as far as how much, you're trying to deal with when you're just trying to grow one simple thing. And if you're
Hmm.
just kind of following one method or one person's advice just to get started, that'll get you going. You might find some successes, and then
Hmm.
you can just kind of build on that from there too, because gardening really doesn't have too many limitations when it
Hmm.
comes down to it. So, there's a lot that can be explored, but finding those first initial successes are kind of the way to go. um,
Absolutely. Totally agree.
all right. Well, really awesome of you to join with us here on our show. It's just a great conversation. And I want everybody to go out and check out your Instagram at the Homesteading RD. Check out all of those great things that you're offering there on your page, and all of those future changes too. We'll look forward to seeing all of your new space and all the things that you get to
Yes.
contribute with us from your new home when you get that down too. So,
It's going to
again,
be an
Katie,
adventure.
awesome. Again, Katie, thank you so much for joining with us.
Yes. Thanks so much for having me, Enoch. Have a great day.
You got